Hello, you're tuned in to AWANI Review. My name is Cynthia Ng. When we talk about the 5G revolution, the focus is usually on speed and smartphones. But the real multi-billion-dollar story is the infrastructure we don't see, which are the steel, the towers, and the sites powering the network. Joining me on the show today is Muniff Kamaruddin. He is the CEO of EdgePoint Towers in Malaysia. Now, EdgePoint across Southeast Asia. In 3 countries, they operate about 16,000 sites in Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Great to have you here on the show, Muniff, and thank you for hosting us at
Thank
your
you so
office.
much. Pleasure to be here.
Now, Muniff, let's clear the air a bit first, because when people talk about EdgePoint, I think they often mistake EdgePoint as a telco. But you are actually very different. You are in an infrastructure play. Could you walk us through how the economics of your business, how does it differ from the traditional telco provider?
Okay, I think we are in the telecommunications ecosystem. We are in the B2B space, and we basically serve the mobile network operators. Over a period of time in the 3 countries that we operate in, the operators are no longer building or minimizing their own builds, and they are counting on third parties to basically undertake the build process. So we are into the build and leasing business for telecommunication structures. Mainly what you see by the roads are the towers and the lamp poles and the building system and so on and so forth. So we are part of the ecosystem, and we are not dealing so much directly with the consumers, but servicing the mobile network.
So essentially the landlord for these telco
landlord
providers.
And the guys who are responsible to maintain, be compliant to the regulations of the respective areas that we build in.
So Muniff, to take your point earlier, we are seeing a trend where telcos are selling off their towers, largely because they are quite expensive to maintain. So can you walk us through what is the business case for EdgePoint to double down on this business when towers are becoming quite expensive and difficult to build and to maintain?
Well, I think what we offer to the mobile network operators, the fact that we can execute it a lot better. Speed is of essence. Understanding the bylaws, getting or requisiting the permits, acquiring the real estate or leasing the real estate for us to build the structures, become more of an art of executing, right? So which allows the network operators to basically focus on them managing the subscribers. So that's where we come in and value add into the whole space. And for EdgePoint, what we have done over the past couple of years is that we have both a dual play of building out new sites as well as acquiring certain assets from the market.
EdgePoint is an independent player. You are not tied to any single carrier, but in a very competitive market, why would a mobile network operator choose EdgePoint?
Number one is the speed. In order for us to be differentiating ourselves with the other parties who offer similar kind of businesses and services, the execution and the ability to execute fast is very, very important. Secondly is in terms of the professionals who actually run the business. So we are being staffed by team members who have very long established reputation of running the tower business in this part of the world.
So there is that operational and expertise stickiness that
Yes.
keeps your clients
Obviously,
to
yes.
you. However, I do need to ask you about prices. So because at the end of the day, it's about returns and margins. Is tower, or rather the infrastructure tower business, is it about who can provide the lowest rent to these MNOs?
Well, it's a yes and no. I think the price needs to be placed at the appropriate levels. Otherwise, I think the mobile network operators will not be able to get the right kind of returns as well. But the running of the infrastructure requires cash to run it. So if you were to give to companies who are not endowed with a lot of good cash flows, I think they may not necessarily be able to manage the infrastructure properly. They may skip certain frequencies of maintaining the sites, not pay the ground rental. So that will not happen to a company such as EdgePoint, because we will ensure that it's properly managed and run.
All right. Let's talk about the math, because your business thrives on high tenants. So more tenants per tower, the better for you. But we are seeing this trend in Southeast Asia, where we are seeing consolidation among telco providers. In Malaysia, we have, of course, Celcom and DG. Indonesia, Indosat and CK Hutchinson. Looking at where we're heading, as your pool of customers shrink, does it make it harder for your path to profitability? And how does that affect the towerco business?
I think our worldview on that is consolidation. We view it in a more favorable light, in the sense that it does make our customers, who are the mobile network operator, in terms of their business model, more sustainable. So with sustainability, it will mean that a bit more consistencies or less volatile market dynamics. It may hurt over the short term, but over a period of longer term, it will lead to a very much a more competitive organization when they do merge. And also over a longer term period, the consolidated companies will have to also roll out sites as well, right? Because they do have growing population to meet the data growth. So that will eventually come into play. So we do view it in a favorable light, right? But you just need to go through a bit of pain at the start.
Okay. So where are you now at that stage, if you could describe the ecosystem?
Well, most probably in Malaysia, in Indonesia is most probably. We've gone through one major consolidation with Indosat and Hutch. Right now we're going through another one with XL and Smartfren. And in Malaysia it's going through with Celcom and DG. So far I think it's been pretty sustainable for us. And we try to basically give the right kind of offerings out to the mobile network operators.
Okay. So on that note, we are also seeing EdgePoint moving beyond the traditional tower business. You are now putting connectivity in retail outlets like MyNews and CU convenience stores.
Yes.
Is this a long-term play to increase that revenue stream outside of the telco world, or is this in some ways just to hedge your bets while this upheaval is happening in the telco industry?
Well, I think you look at Malaysia, I wouldn't say that it's approaching, it's a matured market. So with that, we need to basically be quite innovative and creative in terms of our solutions. So why have we put out small cells, basically? As the network becomes carrying more data, you basically need to infill it with a more dense network. And we need to find areas in which we can deploy these small cell solutions. So hence, that's why we chose people like a convenience store for us to deploy the small cell solutions. In building, I guess that's where particularly where the traffic footfalls go through, like particularly in the malls, transportation hubs. Those are the areas that we choose to target to deploy in building solutions. And of late, there's also a bit more focus in terms of office buildings as well. Because generally, when you look at 5G, you can have quite a wide coverage outdoor. But the minute you go into indoors, I think that's where the coverage is a little bit lacking.
This is why we experience dead zones, because there is the lack of connectivity within.
It's a combination, yes, and at the same time, there's also a case of lack of capacity. So you may receive certain signals, but may not be enough to enjoy the right kind of user experience.
Okay. So will in building part of that business, how significant is this for EdgePoint moving forward?
Well, I think Indonesia in building is one of the largest. It is the largest, in fact, in Indonesia with in building portfolio. In Malaysia, we've just started out. In fact, we've started from scratch, to be honest. And last year there was a big growth for us in Malaysia. largely coming out from the 5G deployment.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about 5G. That's a very crucial part of this conversation. But speaking of in-building, I think EdgePoint also made quite significant inroads into private networks. You are seeing your service in buildings like TRX Exchange, Sunway Pyramid. These are massive wins for EdgePoint. Typically, you'd see that developers hand that part of that work to telco providers, but now they're increasingly going towards third party like EdgePoint. What is the value proposition?
If the operators were to do it themselves, then it will be a case whereby they are only building for one particular operator, right? So what EdgePoint does is that when we build out, just like any towers, in buildings the same, we try to make sure that the infrastructure is open and to be shared by the various mobile network operators around, right? So with that, it will create, in fact, a better offering to the mobile network operators, and for the subscribers, you'll get whoever their preferred network provider is to be on board.
But does that mean that eventually EdgePoint will start to be like a direct competitor to telco providers?
I would say for now that's not what we are looking at.
Okay, all right, okay. So yeah, speaking about 5G, we keep hearing that 5G is about to change everything, but if you look at the rollout across Southeast Asia and even Malaysia, it has been quite uneven. From where you sit on the ground working as landlords to these telco providers, are they actually spending capital to really upgrade the service, or are they still waiting for the economics to catch up?
Well, that's a very good question. I think in the three countries we operate in, it depends on the maturity. So I think in Philippines and Indonesia, there's still a lot of room for growth. And in Malaysia, I think the focus is been less on coverage, right? Be a bit more in terms of quality. So in terms of the user experience, in terms of making sure that there's enough capacity in selected areas to basically soak up the big data traffic that's coming out. So there needs to be an infill sites being built in Malaysia. So as you can see, the build-outs are no longer the tall red and whites, the towers or the tall structures are now becoming more of a street level fittings. You see lampposts building out
street lights
and in-building systems, small cells. So that's where the infrastructure is heading in Malaysia.
And how does that affect your business? Does it mean like the big tower model is going to be something of a relic in the near future?
No, I think it's still needed for rural coverage, right? So, but for us, where we build a lot more in urban, suburban, it'll become a lot shorter, ranges from 24 meters to 30 meter structures.
Malaysia's 5G network rollout has been quite a roller coaster. As an independent provider looking at all this happening, right, does the policy shifts that we've been seeing about 5G rollout, does that create more demand for your business, or does it just freeze the market because people are just unable to know where to invest in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think we have gone through waves over the past 4 or 5 years on that front. I think when the first single wholesale network was introduced, we went through a very big wave of demands, rolling out 5G infrastructure, or helping out to deploy 5G infrastructure. So it has created a lot of good businesses to people like EdgePoint and our competitors. And last year, I think it was introduced the second 5G network, dual 5G network. Their focus is maybe a bit different from the single wholesale network, but there's still a lot of spillover from benefit of rolling out sites for the second 5G network. For us, mainly is in the IBC play.
The in-building?
Yeah.
Okay. Currently, EdgePoint operates about 16,000 sites across
3 countries.
3 countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines.
Right.
I believe the target is, in a couple of years, is 20,000.
Yep.
Where are you going to get that 4,000 from?
Well, I think the respective countries will deliver their respective number, including Malaysia, right? So for Malaysia, I can speak on behalf of Malaysia, is the way forward is going to be focused more on 5G and also 4G network densification. I think that it will still be a core business of building the towers, but more and more I think we'll grow our in-building portfolio. Right, by the time we finish off the next few years, I think we will have a fairly large base of in-building sites, and we can count on iconic buildings. So recently we did Sunway Square, which is a very massive building for us. It has over 900 antennas. We did TRX. We've turned Sunway Pyramid into 5G, right? So we want to grow those kind of new areas. We hope small cells will take off. Once you have the high level overarching coverage areas all done up, then there will be very spotted areas for capacity relief. Places like, let's say, Mont Kiara, where people frequent often, the frescoes and whatever else. And maybe let's see where private network will go, right?
So I want to talk a bit about sustainability aspect or the energy aspect of towers, because towers, they consume a lot of energy. Right. I think EdgePoint has spoken about greening the portfolio and making it more environmentally friendly. Is this, at this point, more of a CSR exercise for the company, or is there a genuine business case in terms of ROI and margin for rolling out greener towers or sites?
I think the outcome of the business case may vary from site to site, because the solution will be dependent on the exact location where it is at. But as far as EdgePoint is concerned, this is something that we believe in. We have about 30 locations across the 3 countries whereby we have solarized, I'm sure I call it solarized, with solar hybrid. Mainly in Philippines, because they do a tower plus power market. For Malaysia, we have 1 site that we have commercialized. So it's no longer a proof of concept. We actually have it, we have actually monetized it. It's actually along the Max Highway. One of the customers, mobile network operator, they were actually running on genset. So we have converted that genset into a solar hybrid, and proud to say that we have reduced close to 80% the carbon footprint for that particular operator.
80%?
80%.
Okay.
Right. Well, we want to do more, obviously, but the challenge in Malaysia is that the grid connectivity is quite good, right? So, but whenever there are opportunities, we will try to do it. Okay.
So besides in buildings and all this, that part that you've just mentioned, any other areas of growth that you're looking at, particularly for Malaysia?
I think these are the main focus areas. Also trying to get into the energy, solar powered, or it's an adjacent business for us. Working on private networks for facilities will be also another areas that we want to work with. Maybe again with the mobile network operators, because we don't have spectrum, right? So you need to work with parties who do have spectrum.
Now, speaking of the private network, I think that's quite big in your Philippines business, because I think you're in mines, industrial power networks. We aren't seeing that sort of 5G explosion yet in Malaysia. For instance, our ports, our energy systems. Is there a lack of industrial appetite here, or what's holding us back? Is it regulatory, industrial appetite, cost? What is it?
I think it's I think adoption from the consumer front has been quite commendable. Look, Malaysia 5G, when it comes to coverage, population area is roughly about 83%. One of the fastest 5G growing countries in the world. Now the question is, how do you want to push it further to beyond what it is right now? That's on the consumer front. I think on the enterprise front, I think trying to find out in terms of getting the best use cases, right? Be it whether medical services, manufacturing. I think it's a case of trying to get the industries to come on board, the right kind of use cases, the right kind of pricing levels. The infrastructure is a lot easier to be deployed. It's never a big concern.
Right. And which industries do you think are ripe for a rollout, like a big rollout?
Anything that's got to do with logistics, ports. Apart from ports, it could be medical services, hospitality, and manufacturing. These will be the key areas.
So, what exactly is stopping industries? Is it is it because service or network is still patchy at this point, or is that just there's no business case to having that yet?
I think for it's affordability, right? So manufacturing, rather than trying to fiberize the whole factory, they just need to swing those investment to mobility kind of a solution, and trying to find the right kind of pricing levels, and people who are in these areas, they want to see some kind of benefits coming back to them. Yeah. So where is it going to come from? Largely coming from productivity, workforce, resource management, easier way of managing the operations, operational excellence, right? So I think that's where the returns would come from.
Have you noticed any of this sort of returns? Have you seen in other markets like Indonesia and Philippines where you have your business?
Well, Indonesia have done quite a fair bit on the selected industries, mainly mining. So there's been some proven cases. And I think in Malaysia, they are looking at mainly on the logistics front, ports, and maybe some parts of oil and gas.
Okay.
Right. So I think it needs to get to scale at some point in time, and hopefully it'll come sooner rather than later. Right?
Okay. Does that mean that we need to have a stable 5G rollout for that to happen?
Yes. I mean, a more deep kind of network to provide those kind of needed capacity in those areas. Yeah.
Now, on the consumer front, for a person maybe watching this episode with poor signal, if you have the tower and you have the telco, why are connections still dropping? What's missing here?
It depends with the location that you are at. To be honest with you, my experience of network quality in Malaysia compared to countries that we have traveled with is really not so bad. But there are pockets, and then there are areas in which maybe the coverage could be, or the quality could be a lot better. I can guarantee you there are certain blocks in this area in KL Eco-City there's really no indoor coverage. Why? Because there's no indoor solution. But we do have it in this building because we are one of the main tenants here. So I think it's a question of location where you're at. And it's a question of people wanting to address those kind of coverage or quality related issues. Some areas the coverage is there, but because it's the capacity is lacking, you don't get those kind of right kind of user experience. So what does it mean? For the mobile network operator, it will mean that they have to invest a bit more money to provide the right kind of capacity, or the capacity as maxed out is to build new infrastructure.
EdgePoint is quite unique because you're backed by private equity. Yes. You have very strong backers, Digital Bridge and the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. Right. Now we know that private capitalists are not forever capital. They are looking to exit in a couple of years, but you are in a business that requires planning 10, 20 years ahead. How do you manage that long-term vision building for the country versus exits and return on investment?
Well, I think as a business concern, it will obviously be business as usual. I think at shareholding level, it may change, but as a business, we have to make sure that the company or EdgePoint is continues to grow. And in order for us to ensure that, we have to keep to the stitchings, right? Making sure that you're close to the customers, try to solve their problem as much as we humanly can, as well as looking at new areas of opportunities that may come up to do the adjacent business as well. So I think trying to get the company to grow, it will be the focus, regardless of who's around as the shareholders.
Now, everyone in the C-suite, they're talking about AI deployment, AI in their business. For a tower company, what does that actually look like, having AI in your business?
Well, okay, that's another good question. On AI, we have invested in an AI planning tool, which provides us with insights of how the network performs. So it's not as good as the mobile network operator platforms they have, but it does provide us with the necessary information and for us to have very good dialogues with the mobile network operators. Otherwise, we'll just...
So is it just like having sensors on the steel, or can technology maybe even now self-predict that, hey, something's about to break down, we can go in and fix it before it happens?
A bit of both. In Philippines, for example, they deploy remote monitoring systems, and all the data basically gets pulled up to the cloud. You can do a lot of very deep analytics around that. For Malaysia, in fact, for all the three countries, we have deployed smart Bluetooth padlocks. What it does is basically, it eliminates the need for people to go out to a certain area, collect the keys, drive back to the site. So you can basically have access to the sites quite quickly, and above all, you are able to know directly who accessed the site at what time, and whether they have permission to access the site or otherwise, right? On the platform tool, why is AI generated, but it's basically crowdsourcing platform. So your phone basically gives all kinds of information back in terms of how the network is performing. So that information is basically put together via this platform, and we are able to analyze the performance of the network.
Where are the pockets of area that looks to be most exciting to you at this point?
It's not a cookie cutter. I can't do the issues relating to a site in Penang could be different from building a site in Maran Pahang, right? So, or in Kanga, Perlis, or wherever that may be. So that is kind of interesting. But from a technology point of view, it'll be interesting in terms of 5G deployment. Where is it going to be at? What kind of use cases will the in this case, the mobile network operators deploy? While we build the infra, we need to size to make sure that the infrastructure will be able to support the kind of use cases, right? Some are deep, some are just very good enough kind of a coverage. So that kind of things would excite the organization or EdgePoint, and new technologies coming up, and see how we can play in those technologies, right? It's shifting every few years.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Muniff, for sharing your insights, and best of luck to you and EdgePoint.
All right. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you for your time. All right.